grandfather was Clyde Paris from Truro, Nova Scotia. We're from the top of Yonge Street. My family was given a plot of land behind Millbrook Reserve because my great-grandmother Tanya Paris was a Jackson from Sheet Harbor Reserve 34, and my great-grandfather, which is David Paris, was from Upper Big Trackety. So most people don't know that from East Preston all the way to Shuby was one big reserve. So any family that came from the Days to the Drummonds, I'm trying to think who else was out that way. So wait, there's Days, Drummonds, some of the Carberry family, all those are First Nations.
What about Talbots?
Yeah, actually, the Talbot family as well. And our family and the Talbot family are kind of close. My family has the red hair and the green eyes as well, but we don't have the freckles.
Okay.
Right? So that's how they decipher. Yeah, our families are really mixed as far as complexion. I'm actually one of the browner ones of the family. Most of my family are both the complexion of my grandson.
You got the gray eyes.
And we got a lot of blonde and redheads. So most people don't think there's actually natural black redheads and blondes, but there are. Right? Because that's a big fight we have all the time. You know, black women wear blonde weave because it's our hair. We're allowed to be blonde, we're blonde.
Absolutely.
Whatever.
I didn't have to pretend when I got him.
Right? And my nephew is probably even blonder than you. I was just showing Teresa. He's blonde, right?
Who's the blonde one?
You know, when we have so many mixtures of family, and when I started this journey, my grandmother, who is Cree from Wabasca, Alberta, her reserve is Big Stone Cree, and we come from a line of hereditary chiefs. Her brother was chief for 47 years of the Métis Nation and Cadott Lake, as well as Slave Lake and Wabasca, and her grandfather was chief before him. So technically, if we follow the hereditary line, I would be next in line for that.
Correct.
But I don't want to be chief. I have no desire to be chief. I'm just a grassroots woman that knows her business. I don't really care about being a leader. If people follow what I laid out, then that's great, but I don't want that. It's a big responsibility, and I'm a mom and a grandmom and a business owner and a public speaker, and we do workshops all based around this. So I know my lane, and that's not my lane, right? And I'm fine with that. So we started on this journey. Pretty much for me, it started for me for therapy. So I lost my brother 4 years ago at 37, and my art journey was therapy for me. So rather than pay somebody $120 an hour, I get paid the $120 an hour to do therapy for myself. And I ran into a lot of roadblocks with a lot of lateral violence with the Mi'kmaq community, even though I'm status. Right?
Yeah.
So, like the Friendship Center, no problem. All three of my sons work at the Friendship Center. One's a program coordinator, one's an outreach worker, and I can't remember what DJ's title is at the thing. My son DJ's engaged to her daughter, so that's the only reason I say that. And I don't, so they all hold positions, and the reason I put them in those positions, and it was me, put them in those positions is because Indians that look like us weren't as welcome into the Friendship Center. So what I did was I put Indians that look like us in those spots so that other people that look like us feel comfortable walking in those spaces, right? They're very quick to take in black and white and native mix, but not so much black and native. That was, you know what? That was,
I got my turn.
That was
You want my
D
umbrella?
I got D earlier.
earlier.
D's like, he must have blue on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You want this?
And,
No, I'm fine.
so I have to be fairly honest and say I don't use the term Afro-Indigenous because I'm not Afro anything.
Thank you.
Right? My great-grandfather's father is Bayesian. Right? His father was part of the Loyalists. He was Bayesian right from Barbados. So we'd have to go back another 2,000 years before that to find the African.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if
the
native-
migrations.
If the native people won't allow me to go beyond 3 generations to claim my indigeneity, you're not forcing me to go back 18 generations.
Thank you.
Right? Because I'm not connected. And I explained it. We did a workshop, and a gentleman was African Nova Scotian, and we used the term at that time. They were saying BIPOC, and I said, well, I'm the B and the I don't need the POC. It's just that simple. I'm the black and the indigenous. POC has nothing to do with me. And he's like, oh, you're African Nova Scotian. I said, no, I'm not. I'm black. right? I'm black and Mi'kmaq. There's a difference, or black, Mi'kmaq, and Cree. And he's like, what's the difference? I said, when you go home, you can go home. I said, where are you from? And he said, Kenya. I said, when you go home and you put your hands down on the land, you can put your hands down on the land that your great-grandparents walked on, correct? He said, yeah, I can't do that. So because I can't do that, that connection to Africa would be so far back. And don't get me wrong, I respect African heritage. They have a beautiful heritage.
Yes.
Beautiful languages. Most speak 4 or 5 languages.
Yes.
But it's just not mine. Right? If it's not, I'm not claiming it. It's not mine. So as great as it is, and everyone says go back to, I plan on going to Africa, but that's just because they have lions and tigers and bears.
And they don't.
Thank you.
And not all the countries do.
No,
I've been
but I'm
there.
going to specifically, but that's the point. Like, don't get me wrong, I get it. And, you know, people try to throw that whole Lucy thing at you where, oh, you know, the first person that was ever found in the world was found in Africa. That's great, but we'd have to go back 45 generations
Right.
to even get there. So, you know, I resonate, but I don't resonate at the same time. I'm Nova Scotian through and through. My family has been here for over 400 years. That's not even including my indigenous, or what they consider indigenous, just the black family part has been here over 400 years.
Yeah.
And my great-grandfather was from Barbados, but he was also Taino. So he was also indigenous to his islands. So
Right.
technically they weren't African either.
Yeah.
Right? They ran because they didn't let us know that the loyalists, most of them were actually the ones that owned the tobacco and sugar plantations in the Caribbean islands. The British colony that went in and took those lands from them,
Yep.
and then put them back on their own land on plantations. Right? So when they offered the opportunity, if you fight for us, we'll take you to Canada and you'll get your 40 acres and a mule. We're still waiting for the 40 acres and the mule.
Yep.
But with that said, though, we just started. So for the way that we move is because I'm status, even though I present black, I'm status. So I use that status to my advantage in anything in the black community. So when we did get those acres of land, it was because I said to Tara when she came to me, she said, you know, going after Crown land, I'm struggling, they've had me waiting. She was back and forth with Jesse, paperwork going back and forth. And I said, you know what? Add me to it. And she's like, what? I said, just add me to it. And 2 years later, we got our land. So, you know, it's and I offered that to Dustin as well, because the simple fact is that a lot of our brown skin natives are status, and even though on paper, because status really doesn't matter, it really
That's
doesn't.
right. It doesn't.
It doesn't matter. There's all kinds of tribes that don't even work with the Indian Act. You enroll directly
we're
with
one.
your tribe.
And we
Period.
are one.
Right? The only positive thing about being with the Indian Act is all my medical stuff is covered. So if I have dental, glasses, anything like that, those things are covered. I can get in Taiwan housing, not that you want to be in Taiwan housing, but you can get in Taiwan housing, little things like that. So all the other little extras, I keep that status card so I can put that back in the black communities. So right now what I'm doing is working with North Preston, because a lot of people in North Preston decided that they wanted these Métis cards. I keep explaining to them that the Eastern Woodland Métis is not. If you got to pay to be an Indian, it's fake. Yeah. Simple.
That's
right.
right.
There is meaningful, right there.
Yeah.
Someone wants 50
Pays
bucks.
you do not pay the government.
Right.
Right?
They're
Because
asking
if you-
for the
if you
Pepsi
start
can
paying the
next.
government, then
Mark,
they're gonna
as the
reclassify
forcing
it as the
on
$5
people.
Indian
They're
who
forcing
brought
on
into the tribe. It's set
When
up.
they took
It's
the,
set up.
took the
Easy.
status from
And
grandmother,
so,
our grandmothers,
but
that's
then,
what they
but,
give them back.
but with you, Teresa, since you brought that up, I keep telling people stop sticking with the Métis and go after the Bill C-31. Bill C-31 is called the grandmother clause. Any woman who was married outside her tribe and lost her status is given the right back to status, and every descendant after that. Right? So that's why I keep telling you to go back and get that acknowledged. Get your grandmother acknowledged, and then it falls in line. Even my grandmother, when we first started this journey before status, because we weren't always status, my grandmother said she wasn't getting status because she didn't need a card to tell her she was an Indian. She looked in the mirror every day. She knew damn well who she was, so she wasn't getting a card. And so we convinced her to get the status card, and by getting her the card, I went for mine. They gave my mother hers. So we kind of went backwards with it, because I was the one that had all the information. So when I went in, it pretty much statused out my entire family, because I could show all the connections, right? And most of us can, we just don't know it when we see it. That's why I said to you, we got to sit down with Jesse, because he's the paperwork guy.
Yeah.
He Well, you
But
are.
we- but,
He finds
our-
shit in paperwork.
I just elaborate a little bit on that. Our tribe ain't even looking for status or the
No, it's not. It's
No.
not about status. It's about locking in exactly who you are. Jesse is one of these people. I can send him. So here's how we work. I go do the research and I send him a 10,000 stuff. He goes through it and picks out key things because he has an eye for key phrases. Okay, so I send him a bunch of stuff. He cleans it up and sends it back to me. He says, did we leave anything out? Do you see anything missing? I send it back to him.
He's getting a group hug before he leaves.
Right?
Yes.
I send it back to him.
Yes.
And then he makes a program out of it. That's what we do. So the thing is that, which is exactly why I brought Jesse here to introduce you guys to him, because I know he has that eye. Right? So, it's work smarter, not harder.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So
100%.
I already know what he brings to the table. He doesn't always, this is a bit, see, look at him. He's getting all shy because he doesn't always realize what he brings to the table. But I've been telling him this for 8 years. I also told him 4 years ago that we'd be standing here right now doing exactly what we're doing right now in 5 years, even though he told me it was 10. I'm Taurus, I'm spoiled, and I don't do 10 years. I was like, no. 5 years. We're doing 5-year intervals. So, when you stick to it and you know who you are, and I don't mean know who you are on paper. I'm talking about when you sit in the quiet of your space, your own space, and you know who you are, then you fight for that. Right? For me, I never really cared. I was raised traditional. My grandmother, does all the quill work, and she's a residential school survivor. She did Indian day school. My mother was in the colored home for girls in Truro, so she went through all of that rigmarole. She was in the colored home, period. So she went through all of that. And my mother decided, and I decided, that the generational trauma stops with me.
Amen.
Because this is my grandson. So this is my legacy. He's never been exposed to any of that, and I don't want him to be.
That is so
Right?
beautiful.
Because it hinders who he is. Now I want him here. I want him to hear. I want him to get this knowledge. He has his given name. He has his name that he was given by us, and he has his Mi'kmaq name. So he knows who he is. Right?
That deserves a pause.
Yeah, right out the gate.
Because a lot of us don't get any of that.
Yeah, right out the gate. But then we can hold our own name and ceremony.
That's
Why
right.
not?
That's right.
All you need is an elder. Once you got your elder,
I know you beat
and
me
you
up.
do your sacred fire,
Yep.
and you do your sweat, you get your name and
You got
ceremony.
it.
Right? It's just as simple as that. And people think that it's more complicated. It's more complicated because unfortunately there's so much lateral violence within the indigenous community against people that look like us. You don't get a lot of the teachings, or they give you half-ass teachings, or they give you the white version of the teaching.
Do you hear what she's saying?
And
Now,
I
what
say
did,
the white
remember we were
version.
saying we
Right.
started
I
learning
say
the
the white
teachings and
version.
realized that
Yes.
we're not getting it. We're
We're
not.
not.
So
We're
we're
not.
not. We can't go
And
out
so-
and just do it.
I'm 52, but I was always a kid that sat. No, I'm 52.
Hey,
If 72
you better
is
be
gonna give
good.
me some extra money, Leon. That's okay. No, 52. But what I'm saying is, like, I'm still learning, and I have so much more to learn. My mother, I consider my mother the elder, and I would have had her here today, but I know my mother, and we only have a couple hours before we get into it. So, yeah, no, I love my mother, but we're too much alike sometimes. But see how you guys have your banter? That's me and my mom all the time. And so for the length of time I was driving and things, I couldn't do money. I was stopping every 15 minutes. But she brings a lot of valuable information. I tell my mom's story because my mom tells her story. My mother was a drug addict for 20 years. My mother lived in the street, right, because of her mother's trauma.
Yeah.
And her mother's trauma led to her mother's trauma.
Which is very deep.
Yeah,
Very
because
deep.
my when they took the 5 children from my great grandmother, she became an alcoholic because she was looking for her kids. And what they would do is go to the residential school and literally set up a TV in front of the school and drum, so the kids could hear them drumming. So the kids would come home, right? And fortunately for us, all 5 of my grandmother and her siblings were able to come home, but so many children never came home. right? And she talks about that. I didn't go into the courtroom when she talked about her disposition and the things that went on in the residential school, just because I didn't think she wanted me to hear it as her granddaughter, and I respected her in that respect. But
Never. I think
all I
it's
see is
never.
her baby. All I see is the puppy sticking their head out.
Never never. Oh, anyway, but
Yeah, you can tell.
I wasn't.
I'm trying right now.
Neville and Freddie.
Neville, Freddie, and Whipper.
Who?
Whipper, Eugene. I don't know. If you know.
I just
Oh.
kind of went to
Who is it?
Okay.
But really,
No.
but yeah. So I mean, I came down
keep
here
saying
because
pretty.
the same kind of
Oh,
love
Lord Jesus.
that-
I remember people all the time.
Hey, Fred. Neville.
I know
Good.
I don't know why. People say we look exactly. You almost got a shower.
Okay, let Tanya finish up here.
So maybe somewhere.
So pretty much what I did is
Because somebody said if you don't tell me
the kind of
you're not
community
related.
that I'm trying to build is we're losing our villages. Like people say, like you remember growing up, it takes a village to raise a child. And the way I grew up is if my mother wasn't home that day, I could go to the next door neighbor, sit at her house, wait till my mother get home from work, go down the street, get a meal if they were eating supper at the time, get sent back home. We don't do that anymore, right? So, and one of the biggest things that they did was break up those villages, right? So, like even growing up, when Africville, for example, I didn't grow up in Africville, but my mother did. So, like at that time frame, but Eddie Carberry is my uncle, so I know pretty much everything there is to know about Africville. Yeah. So, yeah, crazy Eddie. And I love him to death, all of his craziness. But his mother, Daisy, was from Turtle Cove. See, Africville
Now,
was on...
where's Turtle Cove?
I'll show you.
Yes.
So, Turtle Cove. So, Africville was on the Halifax side of the water. Turtle Cove was literally across the water in Shannon Park. When the Mont Blanc and the Emo hit each other, they pushed all those natives out. And they blamed it on what was going on with the ships. But their part of it wasn't destroyed, only the Halifax side. Most of Dartmouth, downtown Dartmouth towards the end of downtown Dartmouth towards the east coast part of it, that was destroyed, right? From the Emo and the Mont Blanc hitting. But not where they were. But they used that, pushed them back to Shuby.
Relocate.
Yeah, pushed them back to Shuby. But Daisy and those guys used to take canoes back and forth to Africa, and they traded wares, right? They had baskets. That's where a lot of them
the picture
crossed
on the archives
over.
are
Yeah,
with
they
them.
crossed over.
Shared,
If you look at the black basket making that we have, Nova Scotia basket making, and you look at the indigenous basket making, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
No, well, there ain't none because that's why the chief Chief Cyphers was stating most of these practices that they're calling here that is either black or African basket making is actually their traditions.
Yeah. African basket making is very different than the basket
Correct.
making that we do here.
You got it.
I do